had always been the kind of person who preferred quiet, isolated places. So, when I found the old house on the outskirts of town, I thought it would be the perfect place to start fresh. It wasn't much. A 2-story home, worn down with age, with peeling paint and overgrown weeds in the yard. But the price was right, and it had a certain charm to it. The kind of charm that made you feel like you could escape the noise of the city and start anew. When I moved in, I didn't expect anything strange. I thought I'd just settle in, unpack, and enjoy the solitude. I never believed in ghosts or anything supernatural. People had told me the house was old, that it had a history, but I didn't give much thought to the rumors. Houses with stories were common, right? But after the first night, things started to feel off. The house was cold, no matter how high I turned up the heat. At night, the silence was deafening. There were no sounds of traffic or neighbors, just the wind rattling the windows and the occasional creak of the house settling. But then, I began hearing faint sounds that I couldn't explain. Soft murmurs, almost like whispers, coming from somewhere deep inside the house. I chalked it up to the wind, or maybe the old plumbing. But every time I tried to brush it off, the whispers got louder, more distinct. One evening, I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard it. A low voice, barely audible, as if someone was speaking just behind me. I turned around expecting to see someone standing in the doorway, but there was nothing. The room was empty. I stood there frozen for a moment, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Maybe it was just my imagination, I told myself. The house was big, and the sound could have traveled through the walls. That night, I couldn't sleep. The whispering had gotten worse, and this time, it seemed to come from the basement. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, but as the hours passed, the sounds grew clearer, more urgent. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't pipes creaking. It was something else. The next morning, I decided to check out the basement. Maybe there was an old vent or something that was causing the strange noises. The door to the basement was at the far end of the hallway, and when I opened it, a cold draft swept over me. The stairs leading down were narrow and steep, the wooden steps groaning under my weight. I hesitated for a moment, but then I told myself I was being foolish. It was just an old house, nothing more. But as I stepped into the basement, I felt a sudden chill. The air felt thicker down here, almost suffocating. The room was dimly lit by a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. The walls were lined with old wooden shelves, filled with dusty boxes and forgotten trinkets. But it wasn't the clutter that caught my attention. It was the photographs. On one of the shelves, I found a stack of old, yellowed photographs. They were mostly black and white, depicting people I didn't recognize, standing in front of the house, smiling for the camera. But something about them was off. Their faces seemed too blank, their smiles too forced. As I flipped through the pictures, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. There was something unsettling about the way their eyes seemed to follow me, no matter which angle I looked at them from. I put the photos down, trying to shake the feeling that I was being watched. But that's when I heard it again. The whispers. They were louder now, more distinct, coming from the far corner of the basement. My heart began to race. There was no one down here. There couldn't be. The house was empty. I turned and looked into the corner, where the darkness seemed to swallow up the edges of the room. And that's when I saw it. A figure, a shadow standing motionless in the corner, barely visible in the dim light. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, maybe the reflection of something on the wall. But then, it moved. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure stepped forward slowly, its shape becoming clearer. It was tall, thin, its features distorted by the shadows, as if it wasn't quite human.
Come closer.
The voice was soft, like a breath against my ear, but it was unmistakable. I don't know how long I stood there, paralyzed by fear, but the figure never moved any closer. It just stood in the shadows, watching, waiting. Finally, I snapped out of my trance and bolted for the stairs. I didn't look back. My legs felt like jelly as I rushed up to the main floor, slamming the basement door shut behind me. I couldn't get out of the house fast enough. I left that night, not bothering to pack my things. I didn't care about the price or the peace I had hoped to find there. There was something in that house, something that didn't belong. And no matter how hard I tried to forget, I couldn't escape the feeling that it was still waiting for me, just beyond the door. I don't know if I'm safe, and I'm starting to wonder if I ever will be.